I am a physician. I came to the United States. I'll speak very fast, so I use the 5 minutes that I was given as best as I can. I came to the United States in 1960. I stayed for 10 years. In 1970, I went back to my home village. It is called Arabi, Arab al-Jalil, مش Arab Jabal Naglis. So in 1970, I went back with a medical degree and a degree in public health, both from Harvard, and a wife, beautiful wife from Hawaii, and a car, a Volkswagen camper that I used as an ambulance. And I was ready to change the world. I went back, and for 6 years, well, the first 3 years, I was the only physician, the only doctor for a group of about 40 to 50,000 people in the villages of Arabi, Sahnin, Deir Hanna, which is in central Galilee, and I went like that till 1976. In 1976, there was another massive confiscation of land, of our farming land, that was in the planning. People received notes saying that their land is going to be confiscated. This had happened so much, actually, the total, I mean, very few people know that we have today less than 3% of the land that we owned before as Palestinians within the Green Line, okay? And so the land confiscation had taken place before and it continued after. So the people have had sort of between themselves started discussing this and decided to go on a strike for 1 day, okay? So this is the big deal, that the Palestinian community within, who are citizens of Israel, decided to strike for 1 day. The government made a decision not to allow that to happen. And so it was really a conflict of wills. I mean, the government said no, and the people, the Palestinians within the Green Line said, yes, we will strike. And the government sent in the crack troops, the Israeli armed forces, into these villages and imposed a curfew so they don't go on strike. I mean, think about the logic of that. The government imposed a curfew. Nobody's allowed to get out of his house. Why? Because so you don't go on strike. I mean, how does that work? So at any rate, I have since written a book of memoirs, and this story is in my book of memoirs. It's called A Doctor in Galilee. It's available on Amazon or in most major bookstores. At any rate, I woke up that morning to see for the first time in my life, and I was there in 1948, but in 1948 I did not see tanks enter our village. I woke to see tanks within 100 meters of my house, and my children screaming, and a neighbor stuck his head out of his window and was calling for me to come over because his wife has gone into labor. I took my stethoscope and walked out and showed the soldiers in the tank my my stethoscope and signaled I wanted to go to the house. They took aim at me and I ran in. This shows you the kind of situation that there was. On that day, 6 young people were killed, and that was the first Land Day occasion. And since then, all of you know what Land Day means to everybody. At any rate, it is actually in many people's mind the one or the first day ever that the Palestinian community within Israel stood together and expressed itself. I suppose I will end here and say that those who are interested, I have my, as I said, my life story in a book that was published in English, and I suppose it's very important to me also, as it is to you, to get together and to commemorate these special historical occasions. But my idea is that we have to reach out to the wider public and not only talk to each other like we are doing here. And that is why I am right now doing a course. I am a student now in New York about creative writing, because I am writing a novel to tell the world about Land Day and other issues. Thank you very much for listening.